Glory to Ukraine. Today we have the 3rd of November 2022, 253 days of repulse to Russian aggression by the armed forces of Ukraine. Welcome at the Military Media Center. We are about to start our weekly briefing on the operational situation at the front lines of the Russian-Ukrainian war, and today we'll have the representative of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Oleksandr Motuzianyk, Brigadier General Oleksii Hromov, Deputy Head of the Main Operations Directorate of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Colonel Mykola Urshalovych, Acting Director of the Implementation Planning Department of the Main Directorate of the National Guard of Ukraine, the third-rank Police General Oleksii Serhieiev, Head of the Organisational and Analytical Support and Operational Response Department of the National Police of Ukraine. Please welcome our first speaker, representative of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Oleksandr Motuzianyk. Glory to Ukraine. Dear friends, today, by the direction of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine and the Deputy of the Ministry of Defense, Hanna Maler, I'll provide the briefing. 253 days of Ukrainian struggle against Russian aggression. We see heavy actions on the south and on the east, and our forces are breaking and destroying the Russian forces. And I would like to start and congratulate our engineers and artillery servicemen today, because they are fighting and protecting against the enemy and bring our victory closer. Our warriors are destroying the enemy, and you will hear the information about that by the General Hromov. And I would like to address to citizens of Ukraine who are now on the temporarily occupied territories. And I want to assure you that we will come back and will come with the victory. The regular missile massive attack by the Russian Federation on the energy infrastructure states that Russia is the terrorist state. Such missile attacks on critical infrastructure and living quarters prove that we'll join and unite together. It's hard for us, but we will continue to struggle and fight for Ukraine. The aggressor state will be punished for its crimes, and the Kremlin will definitely lose. Another important issue is the work and activities with the liberated servicemen. It's a constant work, and we have some advances and success, and the work continues. I want to let you know that this work is performed by the Coordination Center. Recently, this center issued recommendations to the liberated servicemen and their dependents of how to raise the awareness and public and put out this information. I want to warn you that every wrong word can affect the negotiation procedure, and as well as on the people who are captured. Last week, the security situation around Ukraine remained difficult but controlled. The terrorist state continues to launch missiles on critical infrastructure of Ukraine, namely energy installations and living quarters. The armed forces and other units of the Russian Federation continue to seize and retain the captured territories in Kherson, Mykolaiv, Luhansk, and Zaporizhia Oblast, disrupt our actions of the armed forces of Ukraine and completely occupy Donetsk region. The martial law imposed on the temporarily occupied territories in Kherson, Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk and Luhansk regions aimed at further strengthening the occupation regime and pressure on local population, namely through forcing and implementing so-called anti-Ukrainian filtration measures, forcing Ukrainian citizens to perform hard work and seize material and historical values from the temporarily occupied territories. The occupants are trying to quickly seize everything they managed to steal away from the contact line to so-called safe regions in the Russian Federation. In addition, the number of missing persons cases has increased. Russian forces also try to force men to go and bring them to the military enlistment centers in order to ensure their mobilization plan. In addition, the Russian propaganda wreaks havoc and intensified the spread of distorted information on the temporarily occupied territories. As for the support and sustainment of the armed forces, from October 27 to November 2, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine delivered for the armed forces of Ukraine 6.9 thousand of armor vests, 6.7 thousand of helmets, 39.6 thousand of footwear, including 35.2 thousand of winter footwear. As for the winter jackets, for the last week, almost 54.1 thousand jackets have been registered. 45.2 thousand of winter pants, 134,000.9 winter hats, 41.9 thousand of fleece jackets, 98.3 thousand of demi-season and winter underwear, as well as other equipment have been sent and delivered for the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. As for the personal protective armor equipment, the reserve of 200,000 armor vests and 100,000 helmets has been formed. We have a constant process here. As for the winter uniform, you can see that this issue is gradually getting out of agenda. It means that the vast majority of servicemen are equipped with uniform. If there are any issues, they refer to logistics. The Ministry of Defense of Ukraine will keep tracking this issue unless the winter uniform reserves is replenished. As for the payment of servicemen, everything is as we said. As soon as the state budget amendments have been signed, the Ministry of Defense quickly financed payments for servicemen in October for September. In addition, as of now, the 3rd of November, military units have been completely financed as for their monthly payments for pay grade, rank, years of service, etc., as well as other payments for service during martial law, 30,000 hryvnia per month for October. And military units will continue to issue these payments to our servicemen. And now, as for the military cooperation of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, the efforts consolidation brings our victory closer, and we feel this. This week, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Oleksii Reznikov, had lots of meetings and telephone calls with his partners. As for meeting with Minister of Defense of Czech Republic, the Minister of Defense Oleksii Reznikov announced lots of changes coming out. The Minister of Ukraine also expressed gratitude to the Ministry of Defense of Spain for Hawk systems. The Minister of Defense of Ukraine also had talks with his Australian counterpart for new measures to provide security for Ukraine. He stated that the overall support and assistance of Australia amounted to $605,000 Australian dollars. As for now, everything from me, and thank you for your attention. Thank you to Oleksandr Motuzianyk for his information. And now please welcome Brigadier General Oleksii Hromov, the representative of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Good afternoon, everyone. As of November the 3rd, we saw no abrupt changes in the Russian strategic situation. The Kremlin power does not refrain from its intentions to occupy the Donetsk region. At the same time, aggressor is trying to retain seized regions of Kherson, Zaporizhia, and Mykola. In spite of claims of the Kremlin on completion of the mobilization, it should be noted that now it is covered. At the same time, military enlistment centers had a direction to continue search and recruitment of volunteers who want to join the so-called special military operation. In addition, the company-grade officers' activities have been suspended. The defense forces of the armed forces of Ukraine continue to perform stabilization and defensive operations. In Volyn, Zhytomyr and Kyiv directions, the situation is stable. There are no signs of creation of offensive units. At the same time, the situation around formation of the joint Russian-Belarusian unit is still unclear. On the one hand, claims of both sides means that they're trying to distract our attention and drag our forces out of the east and the south to the north. However, in the long term, there is a threat of formation of the unit which can probably act in aggression against Ukraine. In addition, the Belarusian territory continues to be used to launch missiles and employ strike UAVs against Ukraine. The special role is played by the airfield in the vicinity of Lunenets of Brest region, where the Iranian UAVs are stationed. In the week, the enemy launched missiles on civilian infrastructure in the vicinity of Nova Petrivka, Fastio, and Kanyu, and aviation missiles with the use of kamikaze drones on civilian infrastructure installation in the vicinity of Poltava. In Chernihiv and Sumy direction, the enemy conducted disturbing fires with the use of mortars, cannon and rocket artillery against the position of our troops and civilian installations in the vicinity of 3 settlements of the Chernihiv and 9 settlements in the vicinity of Sumy region. In Kharkiv direction, the enemy performed offensive assault directions in 3 units in the vicinity of Novoselivsk, Stelmachivka and Zherelnya. However, it didn't succeed. In Kramatorsk direction, the enemy conducted offensive assault actions in the vicinity of 5 settlements, with no success. In Bakhmut direction, the enemy remains difficult but under control. The enemy performed aviation missiles on our troops' positions in Soledar, Bakhmut. It also performed offensive assault actions in the vicinity of 7 settlements. The main efforts of our troops were aimed at deterring the enemy in the vicinity of Berestove, Soledar and Bakhmut. Our forces are doing their best and everything is stabilized. In Avdiivka and Novopavlivsk direction, the enemy performed aviation missiles on our troops' positions in the vicinity of Vesele, Netailova, Mariinka, Novomykhailivka, Vuhledar, Pavlivka, Perechestivka. It also performed offensive assault actions in the vicinity of 11 settlements. During the last week, we've seen fights going on in the vicinity of the Pavlivka settlement. In addition, during the week, the enemy had high activity in the vicinity of Piske, Vodyane, Pokrovske, Bakhmut, Zaitsevo, Mayorsk, and we fixed and recorded almost 40 encounters. It states that the enemy is trying to achieve its objective at any price. The enemy sustained significant losses both in material and manpower. In general, the enemy is trying to, by all means, takes any measures to exhaust and deplete our forces. For the Kremlin, any losses in material, especially among the mobilized servicemen, are acceptable. In Zaporizhzhia direction, the enemy performs active defensive actions and trying to perform and inflict fire influence on the forces of the armed forces of Ukraine. It also performed aviation strikes on the civilian infrastructure installation, as well as missile strikes. In Kherson direction, the situation is stabilized and under control. The enemy performed both aviation and missile attacks. In coastal direction, within the Odessa and Mykola region, the situation is stable. The enemy also performs aviation and missile attacks. Now, as for the UAV usage. Since October 27, the enemy launched 68 missiles and 30 kamikaze drones against the civilian infrastructure and the territory of Ukraine, of which 2/3, 46 missiles and 40% of UAVs have been downed by our air defense. It states the professionalism of our defenders. The enemy is trying to perform aerial reconnaissance using the UAVs in Chernihiv, Kyiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv directions. The armed forces of Ukraine counter, by all means, the enemy with the usage of electronic warfare as well. However, the defense forces of Ukraine were able to down 4 aircraft and 9 helicopters of the occupiers as well. That is why Russian pilots are afraid of flying into our air defense range. In general, during the full-scale aggression of the Russian Federation, our defenders were able to destroy twofold greater of aircraft by the Russian Federation. Then the Russian Federation lost and the Soviet Union lost during the 10 years of war in Afghanistan. Both as the Afghani war ended with the shame and disgrace for the Soviet Union, as such this war will end as disgrace and panic for them. In the end, I want to say that today, the 3rd of November, we celebrate the 25th anniversary of creation of the missile troops and artillery as well as engineer troops. Our warriors of artillery and engineers performed 486 fire tasks to engage the enemy. 17 command posts of different level, 35 ammunition dumps have been destroyed. Engineer troops performed successful actions as well, because 470 units of armored vehicles have been destroyed by trying to cross the mine obstacles. Our engineer forces also performed pontoon and ferry bridges across the rivers Siversky Donetsk, as well as Oskil. Our engineer troops also inspected 160,000 of hectares of the territory and also destroyed 1.5 million explosive devices. I want our society to recognize and be proud of dedication of Ukrainian artillery warriors and engineers. And I want our victory to become closer. Thank you. Thank you, Brigadier General Oleksii Hromov, for the information about the operational situation on the front line. And now please welcome representative of the National Guard of Ukraine, Colonel Mykola Urshalovych. Good morning, everyone. Now, as for the role and place of the National Guard of Ukraine in the repulse of the armed aggression as of November 3rd. National Guard forces continue to perform special and combat tasks as part of defense forces. During the last week, the main efforts of the National Guard units, along with the other forces, have been aimed at conducting search and rescue, counter-sabotage, strikes and stabilization measures on the liberated territories, retaining front lines of defense in Kupiansk, Slovyansk, Siversk, Avdiivka, Novopavlovsk, and Zaporizhia direction, continue to cover the state border of Ukraine as well as maintain the martial law. The enemy continued to seize Bakhmut and It had some success, some partial success on the eastern outskirts of the city. However, on October 27, the first National Guard Presidential Brigade, named after Petro Doroshenko, was able to push the enemy back out of the city. The main efforts of the artillery of the National Guard were aimed at fire support of the defense forces during the actions in Bakhmut direction. During the last week, the artillery units performed over 200 fire attacks to engage the enemy missiles, manpower and material. We recorded the destruction of 1 tank, 3 vehicles, 6 fighting armored vehicle and 1 mortar, and 2 companies of enemy manpower. At the same time, the National Guard reconnaissance forces continue to discover and detect the enemy targets, namely 317 targets. Thus, the electronic warfare group detected the concentration areas of the enemy in Zaitsevo, Tripilya and Yakovlivka, and these areas proved to be a command post and concentration of enemy troops. Our special forces operation troops of the National Guard also performed their tasks successfully. Thus, on October 29, the special units of the National Guard performed successful actions in Vodyane of Donetsk region. Our units destroyed 3 tanks, 2 APCs, and not less than 20 people, as well as 1 tank has been damaged. The brave actions of our forces did not give the enemy opportunity to consolidate on their front lines. National Guard aviation during the last week performed 20 combat flights and tasks on enemy engagement. We had no losses in the aviation. The National Guard engineers continue to build up mine obstacles and fortification systems and perform demining operations in the operational area.
Забезпечення заходів правового режиму воєнного стану підрозділами з охорони громадського порядку Національної гвардії здійснюється в 19 областях України та
The martial law sustainment measures are performed in 19 regions of Ukraine by 176 checkpoints and patrols, both mounted and dismounted. During the last week, during the tasks execution, the National Guard apprehended 1,215 people, 4 guns, 1 cold weapon, more than 400 ammunition, 3 grenades, 10 anti-tank mines, as well as 300 drug substances have been seized. At the same time, the enemy performs reconnaissance of our positions in cities where military actions are not conducted. Thus, on October 27, the National Guard of Ukraine in the city of Odessa apprehended the citizen of Ukraine who was taking pictures of the checkpoints and was sending it to the
та 90
full numbers of the Russian Federation.
Національна гвардія
This
забезпечила
man
надійну охорону та
has
оборону
been
303 важливих державних
sent
об'єктів,
and delivered to the security service of Ukraine.
об'єкту органів державної влади та 90
The National Guard of
об'єктів
Ukraine
критичної
performed secured
інфраструктури.
and defense of
29
303
жовтня
important
в результаті
state
чергового
installations
з російського полону вдалося повернути 12
as
військовослужбовців
well.
Національної гвардії України. Слід зазначити, що 7 з них гвардійці, які були
On October
захоплені в
29,
полон на Чорнобильській
as a result of the
атомній
ordinary and
Усім
regular
звільненим з полону надається необхідна медична та психологічна
exchange of
допомога.
prisoners, we were able to
Цими днями
bring back
військовослужбовці
12
Національної гвардії доставили
National
гуманітарний
Guard
вантаж,
servicemen.
який надійшов у рамках допомоги від Латвійської Республіки.
These days, the National Guard servicemen were able to deliver humanitarian cargo
та зібраний силами спонсорів і
received from
волонтерських
the
організацій європейських країн для мешканців
Latvian-
прифронтових населених пунктів.
the Latvian
Близько
Republic.
10 тонн
The humanitarian
вантажу, а це в
cargo
основному
has
продукти
been
харчування, доставлено мешканцям територіальних
established by
громад
the initiative of
Миколаївської
the
області, які через бойові дії та постійні
Latvia
обстріли
Armed Forces
опинились у
and
скрутному становищі.
gathered by the sponsors and
Лікування
other volunteer
військовослужбовців, які
organizations.
отримали поранення,
The
виконуючи
treatment
завдання
of
з відсічі
wounded
збройної агресії,
servicemen
проведення активних бойових дій зумовлюють потребу у постійному
leads to
поновленні
the
запасів донорської крові. Тому гвардійці постійно
need of
співпрацюють з медичними закладами та
blood
здають кров
donations
та
as
її
well.
компоненти.
And that is why
Цього
National
тижня
Guard
біля
units
150
and servicemen
військовослужбовців
continue
працюють з
to
здачі крові в
cooperate
відкритих
with
містах України. Гвардійці
medical
пліч-опліч
facilities.
зі збройними силами
The
захищають
National
суверенітет
Guard
нашої
forces,
держави,
alongside
землю
with
та
the armed
громадян,
forces of Ukraine,
виборюють
protect the
право жити в
sovereignty of our
Україні
state
незалежній і
and our land
процвітаючій
of our
Україні.
citizens.
Звичайно,
They
це
fight
надається
for the
ціною
right to live
нацистської
in the free,
мужності та
independent,
відваги
and
нашої
prospering
армії.
country.
Як результат ратної праці 27
As a result of a hard work,
номер 739
on October
відзначено
27,
почесною відзнакою за мужність та
by the
відвагу
decree of
підрозділу
the
оперативного призначення
President of
імені
Ukraine,
Петра Вишневецького,
the 12th
військовослужбовці якої обороняли
Personal
Маріуполь,
Purpose Brigade
виконували і виконують
have
завдання
been
за
awarded
оборону
with the
Південної
special
та Східної
reward for valor.
Також указом президента номер 740 з почесною відзнакою за мужність і відвагу відзначено 9-й полк оперативного призначення імені Героя
The 9th
України лейтенанта Богдана
Operational Purpose Regiment
бійці якого
has
виконують
also been
завдання
awarded
на
with the
Запорізькому напрямку.
decoration
Таким
received
чином, з метою
issued
гідного
from the
вшанування
Ministry
мужності
of
та
the
героїзму
President of Ukraine.
виявлених під час захисту державного
Thus,
суверенітету, незалежності, територіальної цілісності
The
України.
National Guard forces are able to
Наразі
provide
почесне
protection
відзнаки
and
присвоєно 6 військовим частинам Національної гвардії. Україна завжди була
perform their
і
actions
буде. Слава
and
Україні.
liberate
Дякую за увагу.
on the territory of Ukraine. Thank you for attention. Glory to Ukraine.
Дякуємо полковнику
Thank you
Миколі Уршаловичу,
To the representative of the National Guard of Ukraine.
ситуацію в
And
Україні.
now please welcome the representative
Генерал
of the
поліції 3-го рангу Олексій Сергієв. Прошу вас до слова.
National Police of Ukraine, Oleksii Serhieiev.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні колеги.
Good morning,
Росія
everyone.
продовжує щоденні обстріли цивільної
The Russian
інфраструктури по всій
Federation
території
continues to
України,
perform
що, безумовно, підтверджує, що є державою терористом. Разом з тим, незважаючи на постійну
strikes of
небезпеку,
civilian installation on the territory of Ukraine.
зі Збройними силами України,
At the same
Національною
time,
гвардією,
despite
правоохоронними
on the
органами,
constant
продовжує виконувати завдання
danger, the National
забезпечення
Police,
безпеки
alongside
наших
with the armed forces of Ukraine
громадян.
and law
Тривають
enforcement
активні дії з деокупації
bodies
тимчасово
continue to
окупованих
perform
територій
tasks
України.
in
На сьогодні Національна
providing
поліція
security
у взаємодії з
of our
силами
citizens.
безпеки і оборони забезпечила стабілізаційні заходи та відновлення правопорядку у 375
As for the
населених
occupation
пунктах. З них в
measures,
Донецькій області 43, на Харківщині
the
244
National Police
та 88
continues to
на
operate
Херсонщині.
with other
Орієнтовна кількість
security and
громадян,
defense
які наразі проживають
forces
на цій
and perform
території, становить майже 86
stabilization measures.
з метою надання повного правоохоронного сервісу, покращення безпекової ситуації та захисту прав
In order to improve the security situation of our citizens, the 14 police departments activity have been resumed in the liberated territories. The important elements of this life support activity is the demining of the territories. As for now, the EOD personnel performed 307 tasks in Kharkiv, Kherson, and other regions of Ukraine. Almost 2,000 hectares have been inspected by our forces. The criminal workers of the national police are the first to come at the liberated territories, and they performed measures to identify and detect the dead bodies. Thus, in Kharkiv, Chernihiv, and Zaporizhia regions, 268, including 4 children, bodies have been detected. 14 bodies have also been detected starting from November, and it states that Russia is a terrorist state. During the martial law, almost 100,000 criminal proceedings have been started by the national police against the Russian forces and representatives on the territory of Ukraine against the crimes and violation of the territorial integrity of Ukraine. Such violations include infringement on the territorial integrity and criminal activities on the territory of Ukraine. As for now, on the territory of the occupied territories, the national police detected 34 torture chambers have been detected. 24 in Kharkiv region, 3 in Kherson and Kyiv region, 2 in Sumy region, and 1 in Donetsk and Chernihiv region. In Kharkiv region, the building has been inspected for the torture proceedings in there. National police investigators and detectives also recorded 34 torture chambers and filtration camps on the temporarily occupied territories. 27 on these territories and 7 on the territory of the Russian Federation. In addition, the National Police Department also fixed the activity and recorded the activity of four illegal terroristic organizations. These facts have been recorded and fixed as the activity of terroristic organization. The National Police continues to work on the checkpoints around Ukraine. There are almost 658 checkpoints.
А також понад 4,7 тисяч підозрілих осіб, які можуть бути причетні до диверсійної, терористичної та колабораційної діяльності.
672 people and 2,400 vehicles have been detected.
Завдяки скоординованим діям поліцейських у взаємодії з військовослужбовцями територіальної оборони, Національної гвардії,
Police, alongside with the National Guard and territorial defense units, seized 388 weapons, 80,000 of ammunition, and 804 grenades. In the Donetsk region, the National Police inspected the Peugeot vehicle. It was also able to seize the AK rifle.
Під керуванням жителя Донецької області, який за наявними обліками, саме через перевірку за наявними базами даних, встановлено, що він має причетність до незаконних.
The National Police also seized one person in Zhytomyr region as well. In the end, I want to say that the National Police continues to work
діють
24/7
найгарячих та неспокійних
and
точках нашої держави.
operate
У той
in
же час
different
переконливе прохання до
hotspots
громадян
around the territory of
працювати з
Ukraine.
органами безпеки
I also
та
ask you
порядку,
to
з
cooperate
розумінням
with the
ставитись до певних
law
обмежень,
enforcement bodies
обумовлених введенням правового режиму
and
воєнного стану. Разом
understand
до перемоги.
the
Дякую за увагу.
changes and consequences of the martial law. Thank you for your attention.
Дякуємо генералу поліції 3-го рангу
Thank
Олексію
to
Сергієву
the
за інформацію. А тепер
Oleksii
запрошую
Serhieiev
спікерів на
for his
сцену
information.
для відповідей на запитання
And now
журналістів.
please welcome the representatives of the
Будь ласка,
Kyiv Defense
зараз є
Forces.
мікрофон. Піднімаєте руку.
And
Мікрофон
now we are
передається.
about to take your questions.
Прошу, перше запитання.
Доброго дня.
Good morning, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Panchishin, Armia Inform. I have the question to Oleksii Hromov. There is information that there is a deployment of this joint regional group of forces of the Russian Federation and the Belarusian forces. There are also redeployments and projection of forces from the Russia to Belarusian territory. How will it affect the general situation? Thank you. Thank you for your question. Indeed, the enemy does not refrain from its plans to extend the regions of tension along the borders of Ukraine. Yes, they project their troops to the Belarusian territory to perform and form the joint component. As for now, as of today, it has no effect on us. Our plans have been defined, our tasks have been performed for the armed forces of Ukraine as well. We also perform forces inspection in some places of the borders of the Belarusian and Russian territory, as well as in Sumy and Kharkiv regions. Our forces are ready to any actions of the enemy, and the situation is under control and stable. We are ready to any course of action.
Чи є
Thank
ще
you.
запитання?
Are there any questions? And the other question is to the representative of the Minister of Defense, Oleksandr Motuzianyk. Why can't we post the personal data of servicemen and missing persons? And how can this action affect the servicemen and their dependents? Thank you for your question. The prisoner exchange problem is the most sensitive information, and any information, incorrect information can have a negative influence and impact.
Він набуває, знаєте, такого більш вагомого статусу в очах російських окупантів. Він набуває статусу публічної особи. Через це розпочинається
Sometimes when you post the information about the servicemen, this serviceman can have a high priority within the Russian forces, and that is why they try to increase the price for bringing them back, and that is why any information can affect the information and obstruct the process of exchange. Sometimes the servicemen and the dependents of the servicemen do not know any information on their sons or relatives, and that is why it can negatively affect the servicemen and their process of bringing them back. And since this information increases and is posted on the internet, the enemy tries to search the prisoners, and their reconnaissance bodies do not sleep. They operate 24/7 and work constantly to search for prisoners. That is why it can significantly damage the process. That is why it's very important to be patient. And for any other questions, we recommend volunteers and other organizations to address the coordination headquarters on prisoners treatment issues. And this coordination center works constantly with this issue. And this organization is open to cooperation, and they accept citizens and provide area important and valid information on the search of the serviceman, as well as other information on whether this serviceman is being searched or is in prison, captured, etc. Thank you.
Є ще запитання? Прошу.
Are there any questions? Armia Inform, Volodymyr Polishchik. The question is to Oleksii Serhieiev, the representative of the National Police. General, the question is, does the martial law affect the criminal situation in Kyiv and in Ukraine at all? And how does the National Police record the crimes? And is there the increase of criminal categories, crimes, etc.? Thank you for your question. Yes, the martial law affects the criminal situation in Ukraine. Indeed, as I mentioned, 41,000 criminal proceedings have been started, and we had these proceedings started in Ukraine since the beginning of the martial law. As for the criminal situation, we can state the stabilization of this situation. And for the period of this year, we recorded 14% less of criminal crimes as to compare with the previous week.
Поряд з цим відмічається на 3% збільшення кількості умисних вбивств, але переважна значна частина цих злочинів теж пов'язана з війною, вчинені саме.
As for other crimes, there are also changes, and positive situation is getting along there.
Здається, 113 вчинено саме під час війни, під час бойових дій. Щодо майнових.
As for the property crimes, lots of them are having the tendency to decrease, such as thefts, frauds are twofold less. At the same time, we see the 30% more fraud cases, including online. And the last, I want to say that we have the 25% more anonymous mining of installations in Ukraine, and we also relate this by our cyber police that this is a cyber warfare as well, and it's performed by our enemy in order to destabilize the state within our country. And now the question to the National Guard. You mentioned about the results of artillery units. How many artillery units does the National Guard have right now, and when were they created? Thank you for the question. In 2013, when when the National Guard have been created, there was a decision made to create artillery units within its component. This decision was made to create the artillery units to engage the enemy and provide fire support on the east of our country where there are combat actions going on, and to provide other assistance as well. These units have been manned, trained, and equipped before the beginning of the Russian warfare, and after the creation of these artillery units in 2014, these units began to perform their combat duties and tasks in ATO and JFO as well. As for now, these units are as part of operational purpose units. They can also perform actions both independently as artillery battalions and other units, batteries, etc., as well as alongside with other armed forces units. After the beginning of the war of the Russian Federation against Ukraine, the artillery units performed a key role in the defense of Kharkiv and the liberation of this region. In the defense of Luhansk region, artillery units have been actively engaged in the defense of Severodonetsk, Mariupol, retention of front lines in Zaporizhzhia direction, in the liberation of Liman and other cities. For bravery, for tasks execution, the artillery of the National Guard of Ukrainian servicemen have been awarded with the decorations, and there are two heroes of Ukraine among these units. And that is why we can say that the artillery of the armed forces of Ukraine was born in fights for Ukrainian independence. Given the experience of the ATO and the JFO, as well as the war, the National Guard artillery continues to develop, increase its capabilities, as well as, thanks to this opportunity, I want to congratulate our artillerymen and engineer troops of the National Guard who proactively perform their tasks and brings our victory closer. Thank you. Ukrinform. The first question is to Mr. Hromov. If the dynamics of troops projection will keep the same, in what time the unit will be formed there? And the second one is to representative of the Minister of Defense of Ukraine. Is it true that the Russian Federation continues to procure Raj-2 UAVs and drones of Iran? Thank you for your question. I want to say that we understand that the Russian units are trying to be formed on the territory of Belarus by mobilized forces, and we understand that it should be trained and not less than 2 or 3 months. Thank you for your question, for an important question, and it is within the competence of the high military leadership of Ukraine. As for our activity, As for the main intelligence directorate,
про яку можна
our intelligence
що він
constantly
буде інформація, яку можна озвучувати.
raise the awareness
Міноборони
of
додатково на жаль, більше
this
мені
information,
немає додати нічого.
and as soon as there will be information
Ще
to
запитання?
share,
Прошу.
we will share it.
Перше питання до
Thank
пана
you.
Олексія Громова.
The first question is to Oleksii
Зараз
Hromov.
нарощуються рубежі оборони.
Around Kyiv, we see the
Скажімо так, бути напоготові. Але скажіть, будь
lines
ласка,
of
чи
defense.
попереджені цивільні,
Can you tell if the civilians will be
невинних жертв перед можливим
informed on before the probable advance in order to reduce the probable losses? The defensive positions are being established not only in Kyiv, but also at those places where we see the probable axis of advance of the enemy. As for the raising the awareness of the civilians, there is no any secret. However, we'll do our best and try to seek if the enemy is trying to, if it tries to advance. And it doesn't mean that we will perform any actions on the territory of Belarus, but it means that we'll provide protection to protect our borders. The question is to General Serhieiev. Almost in every city and settlement, the torture chambers have been created in these places. Can you state that the torture and punishments, can you say that these torture chambers have become the ordinary practice of the Russian forces? Yes, you're right. Schools, law enforcement bodies, courts, dorms, campuses are full of torture chambers where our citizens have been illegally held and tortured.
Часу без надання щонайменше елементарних засобів для існування. І це все дійсно підтверджує, що Росія воює саме з українським народом.
States that the Russian Federation is fighting against the Ukrainian people and trying
Чи є ще
to
запитання?
destroy it. Are there any questions? The question is to Oleksii Serhieiev. Has the situation on the roads increased or has it been improved? Thank you for your question. Yes, we had some comments on this, and I can say that recently, during the last 2 weeks, where after the massive launches against the civilian infrastructure, we have a certain increase of traffic accidents, and the general number has increased for 10%. At the same time, I want to say that there is an increase of pedestrian death. 51 pedestrians have died during this time, especially at night. And we have the increase at this time as well. That is why our national police warns the enemy, warns the pedestrians to take any appropriate safety measures and adhere to the speed limit, etc. As for kids, we warn them and ask them to wear light clothes. And the next question is to representative of the National Guard of Ukraine. How many National Guard servicemen have been liberated in total? We know that there have been 29 exchanges and since the beginning of the war, and how many of them are still in captivity. 235 National Guard servicemen have been liberated, including 24 women. Unfortunately, this is not the full number because there are still servicemen in National Guard who are in prison, but we remember and we will not forget everyone who is in captivity, and we will do our best and everything possible and impossible to bring them back to their families, and we will do our best. Thank you. If there are no questions, thank you to your attention, and thank you to our speakers. We had the briefing of Military Media Center on the security situation